And that's the point. And that's the point. It is a battle, but one that we're all born for, and the one that made us all come here tonight. So, about 6 years ago, former Senator Gerard Rennick got elected to Parliament for the Liberal Nationals in Queensland. And somewhere along that journey, the establishment didn't like the fact that he was representing his constituents. And he made me proud, he inspired me, like many others have been inspired, and he did the hard work that all of us would love every politician to work just as hard. And we are blessed that former Senator Gerard Rennick is here tonight to deliver our keynote speech before we announce our Independent Media Awards. Would you please make him welcome, Gerard Rennick. Thank you.
Hi guys, can you all hear me up the back okay? Thanks Jason, that was actually a very good speech, and it was such a good speech I think you've showed me up already, because it was very to the point, and I guess that's what I want to talk about tonight, because I actually don't like the name of this summit, and I've never liked the word freedom, and I don't like the word freedom if it's not spoken in the same terms as responsibility, because for too long, and it reminds me of the 1980s and early, well, for me, the 1980s, when I had to listen to the neoliberals talk about free markets. And of course, you know, to me, that was an oxymoronic statement because I've never been to a market that's free. I've always had to pay for something. There's only two outcomes in a market. You're either making money or you're losing money. Okay? I believe in making money. And when I talk, I believe in actually basically being able to derive an outcome from that discussion. So if I'm just shouting at the clouds, or I'm boring somebody, or I'm just whinging and wailing, that is not productive speech. So I'm more interested in speech that actually is going to win the argument and get an outcome for the betterment of this country. And that's what we need to be focused on. And I was actually talking to Michael Gray, he's here tonight somewhere, before, and we were talking about how in the social media circles, basically we're just become an echo chamber on social media. We're talking to ourselves. And as Jason very pointed out very well, is that we've got to do the work. It's actually one of the reasons, it's interesting this, it's harder for me now as an ex-senator to try and start a new party, not because I don't have money or anything like that, you know, you're not paid to do it, because you've actually got to bring people along than it was for me to actually be a politician. Because once you're a politician, you can sit there and you can shout at the clouds all day long, and we see that, you know, with the majors and some other minors who are very good at getting on the airwaves and complaining, but they don't actually have solutions. And that is what I'm interested in, and that is what, you know, I was reading when I was in my prior life recruiting someone once, and I was reading their CV, and they had a fantastic line at the bottom of the one-page, you know, executive summary, and it said, "I'm very good at influencing decision makers." And I actually stole that bit of off their CV and whacked it onto my CV. And the reason why I did that was because that is what it's all about. And Steve, I'm sure you appreciate this as well. If you're trying to sell a product or an innovative idea, it is very hard to change someone's opinion. And I guess that's the point of speech to me. I think to just define speech in terms of whether it's free or not is very flippant. I mean, obviously, I know the angle you're coming at here is about government overreach. Yes, we're aware of that. We know that. We've been talking about it for a very long time. That is something we will live with. That is something our ancestors have had lived with. I mean, that's the great thing about the Revolutionary War in 1776. Was that basically, you know, the Patriots and the settlers, the colonialists in the 13 settlements overthrew the British establishment in the US. So, you know, the freedoms we have today have only been around for a couple of hundred years, and even then they're not really absolute, and even in the countries that think they're free. So I guess the point is that we've got to be able to actually use speech in a way that enables us that empowers us to get on with living the life we want to live in the way we want to live it. And I guess that's where, you know, and I'll you know, this is why I'm continuing to fight even though I'm not in politics, but I'm going to continue to fight in a manner that is in an organised manner. Because I'm sure many of you vote for the minor parties. I'm sure many of you get frustrated at what the major parties do, how they continue. And as Jason pointed out, Matt Kemazuli only got 10% of the vote against a guy as stupid as Chris Bowen. But this is where we have to become more organised. This is where we need a better ground game. You have been badly let down by some of the other minor parties who've never created branches. You cannot expect to drop in a Corflute candidate at 5 minutes to midnight and expect that you're going to get more than 2 or 3% of the protest vote. Even those people who aren't happy with the government of the day will choose one of the two major parties because they see them as a viable alternative, not necessarily a solution, but a viable alternative. We have to become more organised amongst the minor party movement, and the way we have to do that is to actually get a better ground game by having branches and doing grassroots campaigning, things like door knocking, things like dropping off leaflets, holding friend-raiser events, setting up stalls at the markets so that we can put these people and these ideas out there so that people become aware of us, and not only become aware of us, but see us as a viable alternative, because that's where we're struggling at the moment. If you look at the crossbench in the Senate, who are the most publicised crossbench senators in the Senate? You want to pick the three of them? Pauline, Lydia Thorpe, and Jackie Lambie. What sort of impression do you think those three senators make out there in the mainstream? The media blow those people up because that reinforces the view in the mainstream, oh, look at those crazy crossbench senators. Why would you vote for them? Okay, they won't talk about other crossbench senators in the way that they talk about those three because it suits their narrative. It's easy clickbait, but they don't really offer solutions. So when people go to the ballot box, they will go, well, we're not going to vote for those guys. We might put a protest vote there, but we're going to go back to the major parties. So it's very, very important when we're talking about speech is that we start using it in a manner that is going to just get us out of our own echo chambers and out there amongst the masses. And that will not be easy because we're up against it today. I mean, we've got basically three forms of communication. One's mainstream media. How much attention do we get there in the mainstream media? 0 or maybe 1 or 2%, and that 1 or 2% will be at the moment you make a mistake. That's what they'll amplify. The other thing will be social media, and I do think we are winning on social media platforms, but yet again, that will only get you so far. But that will increase, I should add, especially on TikTok and a few of these other platforms. That is growing for sure. And then the other form, of course, is grassroots campaigning. And that is the one thing that the right is doing very badly, and that's why the Greens are doing much better than us, is because they've got a young army of enthusiastic people that go out and do door knocking. They go out, they manage to get themselves in the news for their rallies, rightly or wrongly, but that's what we need to be capitalising on is the energy and the enthusiasm. And I know we saw that with People First, and I want to acknowledge my good friend John Armfield, who ran here locally in Fadden. But that's what we need to do, because if we get out there and we're seen on the ground, we're seen being professional and polished and rational, not emotional, not name-calling. We've got to have actual solutions. And by the way, this is how we pitch it, and People First are pitching themselves. We're not a left or right party. We're an issues party. We're a solutions party. If people come up to you and say, what sort of politician are you? I'm not going to say I'm left-wing or right-wing, because that immediately frames the debate in a way that's going to alienate 50% of the population. We don't want to do that. We just want to solve the problem. And that's what we want to do. And that, I guess, is my point about speech in general, notwithstanding that we obviously have issues about government control. But if we want to do something about that, we need to get the control ourselves. We need to take power. And that's what democracy is all about. It is about empowering the individual and holding the unrestrained authority of the institutions, whether it's big government, big corporations, big media, big super funds, to account. Because any large organisation, and it doesn't matter whether it's public or private, the natural tendency in these organisations is for the yes men to climb to the top, right? Because if you're not a yes man and you speak up, what happens? You get thrown out of the organisation because you're not going along with the crowd. Okay? So we need to, if we want to actually influence the key decision makers, we need to do that in a way that is, I just said, professional and polished. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference on the weekend. Thanks to the organisers for putting it on, and congratulations to tonight's award winners. Cheers.